Amen. All right.
Hello, everybody. We're coming live from Synapse Summit here in Tampa, Florida. This is our first LinkedIn Live that we're doing at GrowthMVP. We're talking to founders, and this morning's topics are the future of work and 1099 contract professionals. I'm here with Phaeton Kwasny.
Hey,
Hi,
Michelle.
Phaeton.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy you're here.
I know. I'm so glad that we're having this event again. It feels like literally yesterday that they just had it, but like we're here again, right?
Yeah. So this is my second time at Synapse. I just moved to Tampa in the last year and a half or so. And it is a great venue for connecting the innovation ecosystem across Florida. We have people here from around the country who are coming to meet entrepreneurs, the next greatest technology companies, and funders. So we have both sides represented here.
Yeah.
We have both the investors as well as the entrepreneurs.
Yeah, it's a great event. It's all about accelerating growth and helping people find the resources and connections that they need really to continue to thrive, grow and thrive. So that's what's so great about it.
Yeah, it's a great group of people too.
Yeah, and this is a great platform too with Growth MVP and giving everyone the opportunity to kind of talk about what that journey is for them. So I appreciate you having me.
So just a little bit about Growth MVP. We just started in January of this year. We just launched. We are helping early stage startups.
Yes.
Sorry, just getting started this morning. If I could only talk.
It is so early. Oh my goodness. It's like people are just trickling in still.
we help early stage startups in emerging markets like Florida to develop and execute on their growth plans. We have fractional CMO services, and we're talking to a lot of entrepreneurs here today about that. So if anybody is at the event, please stop by our booth. We're at 230-5 around the corner from the Fire Stick Grill. Otherwise, let's get into a little bit of discussion on the future of work and 1099 contract professionals.
Contract professionals,
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's actually a really key way to think about it too, because a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm gonna bring on a contractor to support whatever function that's needed, right? But contractors are professionals. Like they have this is what I found, and actually just working as a contractor, being full-time contractor, and just kind of seeing the full scope of how things work, but they have an innate ability and desire to counsel. I think that's really what sets them apart is they want to do their best work, right? They're an expert at something. They have this entrenched innate desire to share it with as many people as possible. And so, they come in and they want to counsel and they want to help and support. And I feel like that really makes them such a great resource for early stage startups, because it takes that courage on both sides. For both the startups, it takes courage to get up and get started, right? But at the same time, a contract professional is going to come in and say, listen, I understand what it is that you're trying to achieve, what your mission vision is. And so, here's some things that have worked for me, with other clients. And so I want to share that with you and help you get on the right foot.
I think that's an important point, is the ability to be able to look across a variety of startups that they may have been working for and be able to provide value based on their knowledge that they've gained from those other areas. You and I have both been W-2 employees as well as 1099 contractors.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us first a little bit about your own startup and what you're doing with Fractio?
Sure. Yeah. So Fractio started last year, kind of got it off the ground, and have been working on it. It's a fractional workforce platform for startups. It's a subscription basis. So basically, you can bring on functions across, or a startup could bring on functions across digital marketing, sales, enablement, or product development. And it's month to month. So it's not, where it's this fear of bringing on a full-time resource. You're not sure whether you're going to afford it long-term, whether it's the right time to do it. It's on a project or, retainer basis. So like the projects can be either way, right? It could be time or it can be, milestone based.
What was your inspiration for putting Fractio together?
So last year I was working full time last year. I had done a 6-year streak with a company. Half of that time was as a contractor, and then the other half was a full time employee. And I got to see kind of the dynamics over that 6-year period and how things kind of, worked on the contract side versus the employee side. And I feel like as companies grow or as startups grow, the silos increase because you're putting out fires, right? And so the culture suffers, the trust suffers. There are a lot of things that just inevitably are going to suffer because you only have so many people, and you're trying to grow so fast that you can't keep up with everything, right? And so that's kind of what inspired me, is that lack of harmony in early stage startups, and helping to avoid that, because it can be detrimental not just to the growth of the company, but the culture and the morale and the trust that's cultivated among the teams to actually make the company survive and grow and thrive, right?
Right.
So that's kind of what inspired it, just really getting to helping the founders actually like execute on their vision, but allowing them to have the trust that they need to do that, and not losing sight of it because of their own fear, or maybe inability to lead, or maybe they're just stressed, right? So it's just to make that journey easier for startups.
Well, I think it's interesting because especially, everybody talks about COVID and the impact of COVID on the workforce and all of that. And as we talk about and look to the future of work, it seems like there is the potential for a lot more of these type of contractors to be sort of doing their own thing, but being able to provide value. But at the startup level, there's some things that need to happen as well, so that they feel like they're a part of the team. Any thoughts on any of that, like in terms of what the future looks like and how 1099 contractors fit into that in the future?
Yeah, a couple things. So I mentioned contract professionals. They counsel, right? They love to communicate. They love to talk, right? And so I feel like that's the biggest benefit that they can bring, because they need to be able to talk. They can't survive in a silo. Like, they have to be able to work cross-functionally across departments, and get the information and the tools they need to do that. So I feel like that's one thing that, for sure that they can support in terms of, helping growth, right? That communication is a core piece. The other thing is that malleability, right? So this actually feeds into future of work too. So future of work is already malleable. If we look at like the tools that we have today, they're designed for the malleability of a let me say it this way. So if the tools themselves, like say video conferencing, project management tools, everything's online, everything's malleable. You could literally like pull up your laptop and like crack it open and start working on something. I feel like in order for startups to stay malleable, that culture internally, by having more contract professionals who are malleable, can kind of go hand in hand with the malleability of the future of work, where we are already. Whereas, the rigidity of, say, like, having like, well, no, we have to structure it this way. We have to have our head of sales and our head of, product development and our CTO. And we have to have it all, laid out before we get started. I feel like that's going to be a detriment kind of in those early stages.
It goes to what you were talking about earlier, where you tend to, and I've experienced this as well in some of the startups that I've been involved in. You tend to see people working in silos. So you have your marketing department, or even your marketing department in silos. You have product marketing over here. You have demand gen over here. And you have, your sales, you have BDRs and SDRs, and they're all kind of doing their own thing. I think one of the things that that I've learned from previous work is that the power of all of those teams working together is very important. And if we can bring that 1099 contract work with that mindset, and I think that's what you're talking about here.
Yes, exactly.
You can be all that more powerful in the early stages, because growth is so important in the early stages.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why the teams can't be rigid, and they can't be like, and it might be out of fear too. It's they're being protective of their space or their domain, and they want to succeed themselves, right? But to your point, like having that 1099 mentality, I think that's kind of what it is. It's just, it's a way of thinking about things to where, you're not just in this little box. You're looking at the full scope of something, and then how you can work together with other people to achieve it. And it's just a different way of thinking. So yeah, I mean, that coupled with the tools nowadays that we have, to actually accelerate the future of work, because it's already here. I mean, we already have it. It just our internal cultures in startups, or the way that startups architect their teams, hasn't caught up to that.
Yeah, I agree. There's some work that needs to be done there for sure, and
Yeah.
I think it'll evolve as the future of work sort of evolves. As well.
Absolutely.
So, how can people find out about Fractio or connect with you further?
So it's online, fractio.co, and also on LinkedIn. So feel free to connect on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions, you want to learn a little bit more, about some resources that you might need for your team, welcome to reach out to me, and happy to chat further.
Awesome. Thanks, Peyton.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. Appreciate
We're going to have our next founder up here in a second. I'm going to, for a couple of minutes. Well, we're back and we have a special guest today.
I am very excited to be here with you, Michelle.
I appreciate you coming. This is Isabella. We just met. We've been LinkedIn together, but we just met in person this morning. So I'm excited to have a conversation about the future of work and 1099 contractors and all of the above.
That sounds awesome.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and who you work for and what you do?
Okay, so I am a solo founder. My company is Employers for Change, the number 4. Our acronym is E4C. And as a female founder, I'm in that HR space. And how I got into it is through education. 26 years in education and an OD in HR. So that's how I got there. That's not exactly what you asked me, but I'm still, getting us to that place. So my company, as the founder, we're out here looking to make sure that internships are done properly, and employers don't know how to do that. So our platform helps them stay compliant with Department of Labor's 7 criteria for an unpaid internship.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And then we also built in National Association of College and Employers competencies. And then we built in extra layers of HR best practices. So it's an end-to-end SaaS platform for employers small to enterprise that helps them to recruit faster, to be able to do real skill assessments based on 6 cognitive skills: research, time management, creativity, problem solving, communication, and I left one out.
No worries.
Yeah, problem solving. So we look at all of those, and then we track those skills on the student side. So when a student finishes an internship or an apprenticeship, they know exactly what the tasks are, the actual cognitive skills are, and that we also can prove that we can upskill the employee. So I got a grant. We use that grant to validate that we can upskill mid to senior level people as well as students. And goal is to make 3 months equal to a year of experience.
Awesome. And are you based in Tampa?
I am based in Orlando. I came over here, but I was at Synapse Orlando.
Awesome. Yeah. So this is my second Synapse in Tampa, and I've been to the one in Orlando as well. It's a good event for connecting entrepreneurs and businesses that are selling into startups. Do you have, is the majority of the companies that you service with the interns and the knowledge that you provide, are they startups or are you working across the board?
They're across the board. So I have some fintech companies, about 300 people in there. They will ask for more intern talent to work with them. So the platform works like a dating site. And so it matches and helps them reduce the employer bias and increase diversity.
Gotcha.
So it's faster recruiting. We use real skill assessments based on, again, what's knowledge and in the heart, so that you can see what those 6 skills are. And if they can do what you're asking them to do in the job, now that's when you actually get to meet and you see. So everything's hidden.
Yep.
You don't see each other until you've actually been matched. And the assessment comes back and you can see, okay, where are they on a scale of 1 to 5 on these 6 skills?
Gotcha. So it's like a 2-sided platform. Basically.
It is. It's actually 3 sides. Employers are my paying customers. Students are free. Schools are collaborative partners.
Gotcha.
But inside of that platform, we have interview questions, offer letters, decline letters, HR docs, individual development plans, and the skills study that I mentioned earlier. We were able to track those same skills in the employers and could see, wow, they were learning also and improving in those areas. Right. So cognitive skills, power skills are the things that matter in the future of work.
That's awesome. Are these interns that are hired, are they hired as 1099 contractors? Like what is the...
It'll depend on the size of the company, honestly. But if you're working, if it's unpaid, we're still being able to track those hours for them.
Right.
Even though that's not contractor, but most startups, small businesses, even some of the mid-size will do unpaid internships. So the 1099 role isn't in there, but the larger the company, they would go towards, a W-2, W-4.
Gotcha.
But 1099s, most startups are putting them in there and at that level.
Right. So we were talking earlier, Phaeton, who was she has her own fractional marketing company. We were talking about the future of work and the impact that this pandemic has had on the ability to be able to be more of your own employee. I know you're working in the intern space more than...
No, I can actually speak to that. I have a podcast. It's called The Intern Whisperer. We talk about this stuff all the time. What is the future of work going to look like in 2030, 2035? And so if you follow what the industry trends are, more people, you've seen like lots of layoffs going on, right? You're going to see that more and more people become these independent contractors, and they're going to have to come in and have some of their own business skills. What I think that schools, and I think schools are eventually going to go away too, because we're going to be learning most of our things in either 2-year programs or doing the things online to get certifications. But the really strong schools are going to be like top tier schools and some of the big state schools. They'll all end up absorbing some of the smaller schools. When you're looking at being able to be a contractor, you need to be very nimble as a person that's graduating from school. And most people that would, and I'm going to stay in this track for just a little bit, the ones that would go to college are like lawyers, teachers, anybody that's going to get a certification. Everybody else, psychologists, pick something, accounting, those people will end up going to school because that's where the real value of school is. But if you're in marketing, you can honestly never go to school, and you can get your certifications through Google, pick anything that's out there. AWS has certifications if you're trying to get into cybersecurity and SEO and anything in that space of cloud-based service. The same holds true for the areas of marketing. HubSpot has great courses online that people can learn from.
Yep.
You don't have to
I've used several of those courses
Canva,
myself. Yes.
Yeah. I have in my own academy in our platform, Unreal Engine, Epic Games, and Unity. They have free courses. So we put those in there, again, just to be able to help people get certifications, if you will, and knowledge. But the real skills of the future of work are going to be based on those same 6 skills that I mentioned: problem solving, critical thinking. And we're going to have to be able to demonstrate on resumes that we actually have those skills.
Yep.
So we're going to see more assessments coming through, and then you need to worry about like how ChatGPT is going to be fitting into all of that.
That is a big. Actually, we're having a conversation about AI in the next session later this morning. But definitely going to have an impact on the future of work, especially for marketers and even sales professionals. And everybody. Yeah.
I was playing with ChatGPT and I sat there and I went, how far can I take it to break it? And there is a certain place where you can actually give it too much information, and then it doesn't know how to create what you're asking to it. So
there's a whole thread that I'm following. Christopher Lockhead is somebody who I admire. He's a ex-CMO and does a podcast called Follow Your Different in Santa Cruz, out of Santa Cruz. He talks a lot about this idea of knowledge workers versus experience. Now it's changing in that we're evolving because you can use ChatGPT or AI or whatever for the knowledge at this point in time. So it's people who have original thought and can bring new perspectives to the table.
Thought leaders.
Exactly.
Yeah, thought leaders, futurists, those are the ones that are going to be really identifying what the trends are. Many times on my show, we go and we talk about Black Mirror as it relates to AI. There's also another great story, a series on Netflix called The Future Of, and they're all looking at what are jobs, careers, what is that future going to look like? So I would recommend people watching those. The one about Black Mirror is really dark.
I've seen that. I've seen the whole
series. It raises
series,
a lot of ethical dilemmas, and I think that
the first one in particular is very shocking,
dark, very dark.
So just one last thing, I think I want to. We've been talking about from the startup perspective, given that this is a startup show event. What should startups be thinking about with respect to the employees or the contractors that you're fulfilling for them? What can they do to better integrate them into their companies?
I do a lot of teaching on this also as a consultant. That's where I originally started. And honestly, it was a lot of people saying, how are you so successful with interns? What they don't know is going to be the thing that hurts them. So they need to educate themselves. The Department of Labor has 7 criteria for an unpaid internship. So that's something that they should do first. Many startups bring in what they call an intern, and it's not built around a real job description. Around it has to be tied to their major. It has to be tied to a school semester. There's these 7 criteria, and it's really important that you follow it so you don't get sued. That's why I built that platform to help protect the student and protect the employer from what they don't know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great
Thank you.
information. How can people find out more about you and what you're doing?
Thank you. I'm on LinkedIn, Isabella Johnston with a T in the Johnston. They can also go to Employers for Change, the number 4. That's how we differentiate. There's some Employers for Change with the word FOR. They're nonprofits like in Ireland and a couple of other places. But we're here local, and the website is the number 4c.tech, TECH. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.
Yeah, okay. I know we're still on, but I'm going, man, I want you on my podcast.
Well, we'll make that work. Okay, we're gonna bring on I see our next guest waiting in the beyond here, so I am going to put us on mute for 1 second. Okay, live from Tampa at Synapse Summit 2023, and I am here with Trevor Clark.
Hey, Michelle.
Very excited to have a conversation. Trevor has a unique experience as well as a startup that he has recently launched in the last couple of years, and is going to talk to us a little bit about the future of work and 1099 contractor professionals, but also his business. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Trevor Clark. I'm founder and CEO of ShiftOff. We are a on-demand contact center platform. So we work with some of the largest brands, consumer brands that you can think of that need flexible agents to jump in and help with busy times like tax season, for example. So we have a platform that basically connects these big brands to the most talented contact center agents in the US.
Awesome. And you have a background in this as
Yeah.
well. You've been working in this industry for quite some time, and you saw problems that you wanted to solve.
Yeah, it's one of those industries that you kind of stumble on, and then it like kind of grips you, and then you can never leave it. So yeah, I've been working in contact centers as like analytics, finance, planning since I left college, and it's really, really clear that there's major challenges in the industry, mainly around supply-demand fit, because call volume, email volume, chat volume, all of those things fluctuate all the time. And so a static full-time workforce is never really meeting the needs of the customers. And it conflicts directly with the needs of the business. So I saw an opportunity and had an opportunity to think about it for a few years. It wasn't like jumped at it. And then over time, I realized the problem just wasn't going away and someone needed to solve it. So here we are.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Awesome. So you rely a lot on, obviously, your business on the employee side or on the contractor side, on 1099 contractors to fulfill these roles.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about the challenges, but also the opportunities that are involved in that realm?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at a 1099 versus a W-2, and especially in the contact center space, you have to rethink the entire operation. So one of the challenges is taking what we know and applying it to a 1099 environment. It can get kind of tricky because you have to create a way for these 1099s to have total control over their time and what they work on, who they work with, how they earn. And that's really core to our business model. In fact, we spend a lot of time thinking about that and designing that to make sure that we were building a really sustainable business that supports both the 1099 businesses and, obviously we're complying with the labor laws and all the things that we have to be mindful of. So we had to throw all of our contact center knowledge out the window. And, obviously not all of it because we were able to solve a lot of problems, but that was a big challenge. But when we get through that, now it opens up opportunities. And you now have the ability, because these agents are so flexible, to perfectly staff at all times, which you talk to any contact center operator, it's a dream. A lot of the people I talk to when we're selling or just talking to investors, they're like, oh, I had this idea. And anyone that's operating a contact center is like already thinking that this is the solution. So it's really cool to be able to bring that to market.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So some of the challenges that exist, I know that in the industries that I come from, is that the contractors don't feel like a full part of the team or a full part of the company. How do you mitigate that? How do you get them educated enough to be able to fulfill the role and feel like they're a part of something? Or is there something else that you do to?
No, that's a really good thing. Something we could think about a lot. What we see in practice is it's not exactly the case, because the 1099 agents bring a level of ownership that most employees have. This is their world. This is their livelihood. They are making every choice to get to where they are, and that has value. And it also holds us accountable to making the environment really positive and lucrative for that agent. So it actually works really well, because I think in a traditional W-2 environment, sometimes companies can kind of take advantage of the fact that they have that relationship. We can't do that. If we start to make decisions that impact our agents, we're going to lose them. There's nothing we can do about it. So everyone's coming together at the same time on their own accord. And I think that makes a very powerful connection, and one that incentivizes performance, incentivizes the relationship in a way that, again, most employment models, I don't know that really accomplish that.
Right. Are you, and this is kind of an off the cuff question. Yeah. I was at an event recently in Gainesville, and a big part of the conversation was this idea about remote employees, and how the community of the business is no longer their center of community. I feel like with 1099 contractors, this is similar. Is there anything unique that you're doing to build community across your?
Oh yeah, I mean, Slack is a huge tool for us. I mean, and there's no need to reinvent the wheel. It's a great way to get people.
Slack.
It's the best. And so actually, a big part of community for us is centered around support. So, a lot of people think, well, how do you give an agent who's a 1099? A lot of people think they're random, like just going to take a call here and there. They're not really. What we do though is we bring them in and we connect them to a core group of, we call them star agents. These are folks that kind of manage the community for a particular campaign. Okay. They become experts on the campaign. They know everything. In fact, they're at a management level and in terms of their knowledge and their ability to support other people. And so that becomes like this nucleus that kind of keeps everyone together, because they're also creating culture in Slack. I mean, you can do that. You can make it fun. We had a really fun time about 9 months ago. We had a big tax peak event, and we made it really fun. We were giving away TVs and gift cards every 10 minutes, stuff like that. It was like so many agents were typing in the channel. This is the most fun place I've ever worked. Awesome. And so you can do a lot with remote work, and I think that being in a facility has value, but I think you can do a lot of the same. Yeah, and
it's your company that's bringing that community then, rather than the companies that they're being outsourced to.
Yeah, I think it's a skill. I think you have to. I think for us, like, we're developing that skill and value. So yeah, that we take ownership of that, because the better our community is, the better we perform for our partners. Awesome. And the better our agents perform.
And what are some of the things that you're thinking about as we look to the future of work and your model here? And there's a theory that this is going to be more of this type of model in the future, and especially in the startup world. Yeah. I know that your customers are a little bit different than startups, but any thoughts on future of work and how this model might apply?
Yeah, I mean, I think we learned a lot in the past couple of years about what the relationship people really want with their job. And you could look at a number of drivers. The economic conditions may have triggered some of that. What I think at the end of the day, we learned something in the back of everyone's mind that no one really wanted to admit, was that flexibility is incredibly important. Yes. And now that we all have a little bit of a taste of that, I don't think that changes. Yes. I think that the companies that offer flexibility and make this one of their core values, I think are going to stand out to employees. You're going to attract and retain better talent. We see it every single day. We're finding the very best contact center talent I've ever seen in my career, and it's not because anything else besides flexibility. I mean, we are competitively paying people, but that's not it. It's because they have control, and no one's going to tell them that they have to miss their kid's soccer game or that they can't take their loved one to the, to the doctor or whatever that is. Like, you're never getting in the way of their life, and that's how we're designed. And I think people, that's what people want. They expect now.
I think flexibility is the perfect word for this, and I think that's going to be where the future goes for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how can people find out more about your company, about you? How can they connect with you? And
so LinkedIn is probably the best way to connect with me. Our website is shiftoff.com, SHYFTOFF. There's a Y in there, couldn't get the I when we got the domain, but that's okay. So just our website, LinkedIn. I mean, I'm an open book, so if anybody wants to chat, I'd love to.
Trevor Clark with no E at the end.
No E, no C, CLARK.
Yes.
So, yes.
Well, thank you so much for being here today.
I appreciate it. Thank
and
you
being
so
a
much.
part of this, and
awesome.
I appreciate you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, we have our last special guest, one of my favorite people.
How are we doing?
Oh, good. This is Saxon Baum from Florida Funders.
How is everybody?
Yeah, there we go.
Perfect. How's everybody doing?
He was so generous to fill in for somebody who was not able to make it today for this LinkedIn Live discussion.
Happy to be here, Michelle. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Saxon.
Yeah, of course.
So we just spoke with Trevor Clark.
Okay.
Shift Off. I know Florida Funders has invested in Shift Off.
Yep.
first of all, tell us a little bit about Florida Funders for the audience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Florida Funders is an early stage venture fund. We invest in early stage technology, seed through Series A, primarily in B2B enterprise SaaS software. So Trevor, perfect example. B2B company was doing 6 figures in revenue when we first found them, and that was a bit of an early investment for us, but they're doing really well. We invest primarily in Florida and in the Southeast, with about 70% of our total portfolio in that area. And then we do invest around the rest of the country. We have deals in New York, California, and so on and so forth. But yeah, that's a little bit about Florida Funders. And we also have an angel network that's associated with our business. So our fund will go out and lead a deal, typical check size, 500,000 to $1 million. And then we'll go out to our angel network, raise anywhere from $500,000 up to $3.5 million we've done on that network.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Yeah, Florida Funders is one of the most active VCs in Florida,
Yep,
as well
yeah.
as the Southeast
Yeah,
U.S.
since 2017, we've been the most active VC in the Southeast.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And who said that? CB Insights?
That was CB Insights, and then PitchBook recently
Yes.
came out again. And actually, that report that Panoramic did as well had it in there,
Awesome.
which was interesting because it showed the other firms on there, which wasn't a surprise. I kind of knew who was going to be on there. But yeah, it was great.
Well, we are talking this morning about future of work. We're talking about 1099 contract professionals. Maybe from a VC perspective, can you tell us a little bit about how you think about companies that are in the future of work and what you look for?
Yeah, absolutely. So future of work is a huge space for us. Shiftoff, obviously, being one of those. We have some great local companies here in Tampa, Chatter being another one, really helping automate the recruiting cycles and making recruiting much easier. You know, the future of work is the future of everything, right? So everybody works. It's what people are here to do, is what we always say. People are on this planet to work, right? That's what it's all about.
And to have a little fun on
And
the
to
side.
have a little bit of fun. But work is fun, right? That's
Yes,
what you
of
and I always
course,
say.
of course,
Exactly.
of course.
So the future of work and making work more efficient and enhancing the day-to-day is something that we have always been betting on. And really, I think over the last, I would say, 3 to 5 years, there's been mass adoption of technology inside of large enterprise. So forever, large enterprise was always slow to adopt technology, and you had smaller, nimble players in the B2B space that really were starting to grow at a fast pace. And the reason they were is because they were implementing technology to make work easier,
Yes.
right? To make it not working harder, but working smarter. And with the adoption of those technologies by the enterprise, you've seen the industry of the future of work really skyrocket. So it's something that we love. And I think it's interesting because it used to be the future of work. And I would always just consider that B2B enterprise software, making the day-to-day work easier
Right.
and more efficient. But I think now there's different verticals inside of future of work. You have HR tech, you've got recruiting technologies, which is probably a subset of HR tech. You have things like leveraging 1099 workers, like Trevor and what he's doing in terms of the gig economy. So really the future of work, I think, has become its own vertical inside of SaaS. And I really think it truly is the future.
Yeah, there's so many different definitions. I think what we've sort of narrowed in on here is, and Trevor explained it perfectly, which is the flexibility that people want in the future of their work. And therefore this whole 1099 culture and 1099 workers is going to be more and more in the future, and especially for startups, because they're not
100%.
ready to invest full bore.
100%. And if you look at kind of the life cycle of 1099 workers, obviously this is something that's been around forever, but the implementation and sort of the crossroads of technology companies and 1099 workers, I think about Uber. That's the first company that comes to mind for me. Yes, there was some before, but Uber was really the one that allowed anybody to be able to make a living without having a full-time W-2 job.
Yeah.
And so not only did that open up the world to that type of work, but it also opened up legislation and regulation to that type of work.
Yes.
So you have Uber and Lyft that, fought with states like California and New York. And then you have Airbnbs of the world that are still fighting with states like New York and California. But we sort of got through that first cycle, right? So call that the early 2010s. We got through that. And then you really had the rise of the gig economy. The gig economy was doing extremely well across the board. If you can do a gig economy product, it was being implemented across any vertical, any technology, any industry. Well, then comes COVID, where the decline of 1099 work really came because less people were working, right? You have sort of the Great Recession. You've got people not working and people just didn't want to work. But over the last, I would say, year, we've seen an increase of 1099. And in the kind of the transition that I'm seeing right now, and Michelle, I think this plays into well what you're doing, is really high quality work is now being subbed out to 1099. So it's not just your Instacart driver, it's not just your Uber driver, but it's somebody like yourself who is very experienced from a strategical perspective and a tactical perspective in marketing, going in and telling a startup, hey, you don't need to pay somebody $300,000 a year. You can work with us. We can quarterback a whole playbook for you and plug in the right people. Marketing is probably the newest thing that we've seen with that, because we've seen that on the financial side for years, and we've seen that on the operation side forever with consultants. It's no different than what is now happening in marketing and in sales. And it's really a way that companies can get the benefit of a really high level employee without having to go and spend that big dollar.
Right.
We're loving seeing that right now because you're getting that quality work.
What are some of the challenges, though? I mean, there's definitely the tax implications for employees, and I know this is not your area of expertise, but any thoughts on how to overcome some of those challenges? You talk about regulatory.
I think that just like anything else, there is now software out there to solve these problems. So with the rise of 1099, there are now a lot of payroll softwares. There's a lot of remote working software that you can leverage as a company, as an entrepreneur, to kind of take that burden off of your plate, to make it a lot easier to work with a 1099. On the 1099 side, they just have to make sure that they're doing the right things, paying their taxes from a personal standpoint, running things through a business entity that probably makes sense. And, a traditional CPA or accountant is going to know that and how to do that. So I always tell people, when you're starting a business, and that goes for the 1099 side as well, because that's somebody's own business.
Yep.
Exactly. Get the right legal counsel, get the right tax and accounting work to set everything up correctly. And then you're not going to have to worry about it. When you're growing like a weed and you need to worry about business development and execution, you're not going to have to worry about the back end. So I think it's probably doing your research on some of the softwares that are out there to make it easier. But by no means would I be intimidated by this. This is something that is very common these days in early stage companies. And from an investor standpoint, as long as the story makes sense, the dollars that are being spent make sense. And really, I think another key is like the oversight. So making sure on your staff that you have the right person working with those 1099s,
right.
And ensuring that you're getting what you're paying for. Because, back in my day when I was running a startup, we did 1099, but it was all programmers and developers in Pakistan. I will tell you, I'm not a technical person. Our CTO was up from the hours of 12 to 6 a.m. every day running that team. So he was that oversight, and it was effective. But if you don't have that oversight, you hear horror stories of getting buried in bills, getting product that isn't what you thought it was going to be. So I think from an entrepreneur standpoint, just make sure that you have somebody that maybe might not be an expert in that space, but can oversee the work that's being done.
Right, an internal connection.
Exactly.
Well, this was really good conversation.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
And good luck on your venture. So excited for you.
Why don't you tell them a little bit about how they can find you or Florida Funders or what you're looking for?
Absolutely. So we've got two sides of the business. If you're an investor, come and find me, Saxon at FloridaFunders.com. If you're a founder, you can apply on our website, or we're easily accessible. We've got 4 people on our deal team, so we'll actually be here at Synapse all day. If you're here, come and talk to us. If not, you can always find us online, FloridaFunders.com, and we'll get back to you quickly. Hopefully, that's our goal. We have a lot of companies come through our doors, but we're looking to work with the best founders and the best investors. So,
awesome. Thank you, Saxon.
Thank you, Michelle.
Enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah, I appreciate it.